Argentina had just defeated England. The final whistle blew. The celebrations began. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of simply waving their national flag, several Argentine players held up a banner that read, "Las Malvinas son Argentinas." The Malvinas are Argentine. What do a remote group of islands in the South Atlantic have to do with football? Why does this message appear whenever Argentina plays England? And why, more than 40 years after a short but deadly war, do these tiny islands still stir such powerful emotions? This is the story of the Falkland Islands, or as Argentinians call them, Las Malvinas. Imagine flying east from Argentina across the cold waters of the South Atlantic. About 500 kilometers from the Argentine mainland, you'll find two main islands and hundreds of smaller ones. Together, they cover around 12,000 square kilometers. Yet only about 3,500 people live there. There are no large cities, no skyscrapers, no busy highways. Instead, there are rolling hills, vast sheep farms, penguins, elephant seals, and some of the richest fishing waters in the world. Now here's something interesting. From London, these islands are nearly 13,000 kilometers away. From Argentina, they're just over 500 kilometers away. That simple geographical fact lies at the heart of one of the world's longest territorial disputes. Even the name of these islands tells a story. If you're British, they're the Falkland Islands. If you're Argentine, they're Las Islas Malvinas. The British name dates back to the late 17th century. The Spanish name has French roots. Early French explorers called them Isles Malvinas, after sailors from the port city of Saint-Malo. When Spain later took control, the name gradually became Malvinas. Today, the name you choose often reveals more than geography. It reflects history, identity, and sovereignty. So, who actually owns these islands? The answer depends on whom you ask. Britain says it has administered the islands continuously since 1833. Argentina argues that it inherited the islands from Spain after gaining independence, and that Britain seized them by force. Both countries have historical documents supporting their claims. Both teach different versions of history, and neither side accepts the other's position. For nearly 2 centuries, the disagreement continued. Then, in 1982, it turned into war. On the 2nd of April, 1982, Argentina sent troops to occupy the islands. Its military government believed the islands rightfully belonged to Argentina and expected Britain to negotiate. Instead, Britain launched a massive naval task force, sending ships more than 12,000 kilometers across the Atlantic. For 74 days, the two countries fought on land, at sea, and in the air. When it was over, Britain had regained control. The war claimed the lives of around 649 Argentine military personnel, 255 British military personnel, and 3 island civilians. The fighting ended. The dispute did not. So why does football keep bringing all of this back? Because in Argentina, football is much more than a sport. It's part of the nation's identity. Just 4 years after the war, Argentina and England met in the quarterfinals of the 1986 FIFA World Cup. The match became legendary. First came Diego Maradona's controversial Hand of God goal. Then, just minutes later, he scored what many still consider the greatest goal in World Cup history. Argentina won 2-1 and went on to lift the World Cup. For many Argentinians, that victory meant far more than football. It felt like a symbolic response to the events of 1982. Since then, whenever Argentina faces England, memories of the war often return. That's why messages about Las Malvinas still appear during football celebrations. For many Argentinians, the islands remain part of their national identity. But there's another voice in this story: the people who actually live on the islands. Most islanders identify as British. They speak English. They use British institutions. And in a 2013 referendum, more than 99% voted to remain a British overseas territory. Britain argues that the wishes of the islanders should determine the island's future. Argentina disagrees. It says the sovereignty dispute existed long before the current population and should be resolved through negotiations between the two governments. That disagreement remains unresolved today. At first glance, these islands seem too small to matter, but geography tells a different story. The surrounding waters support valuable fisheries. The region may contain oil and gas reserves. The islands also occupy an important strategic position in the South Atlantic. And beyond all of that, the issue is about history, identity, national pride. Sometimes, a place becomes important, not because of its size, but because of what it represents. When Argentine players celebrate with the words, "Las Malvinas son Argentinas," they're not simply talking about a group of remote islands. They're expressing a national memory shaped by history, conflict, and identity. For Britain, the Falkland Islands remain British. For Argentina, the Malvinas remain Argentine. And for the people who live there, they are simply home. More than 40 years after the war, the dispute continues. And every time England and Argentina meet on the football field, history quietly returns. Sometimes, the world's biggest stories begin in the smallest places. If you enjoyed this journey into one of the world's most fascinating territorial disputes, subscribe to Kuknalim Virtual Earthscape, because every place has a story, and every map has a history waiting to be explored.